Ezra, great to see you. Big No Kings Day coming up on Saturday. I know you're getting stoked. You're getting pumped.
Yeah.
You're taking your vitamins. You're eating your protein shakes. You're doing your special exercises. All those things. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of reason for folks to feel depressed about the way things are going right now. I mean, I was just talking about the way JD Vance was addressing this horrific Telegram chat story, just not showing leadership in this moment. People get very dejected and depressed over that kind of thing. But No Kings is an opportunity for people to unleash that energy where they want to do something, they want to contribute. Your thoughts?
Look, if you're feeling depressed, you're paying attention. This regime is escalating. Since the last No Kings, they've escalated their attack on American cities. They're sending National Guard troops from red states into blue states. They're terrorizing American communities with a secret police force. They're ignoring the federal law. They're going after political opponents. They're preparing to use the tools of the executive branch to bring the hammer down. My God, how could you look at that and not feel like the whole world is collapsing in on you? That's part of the plan. That is what they are trying to do. The fear that you might feel, the sense of overwhelm that you feel, is what authoritarian regimes do. This is one of the characteristics of an authoritarian regime, which is why I say our enemy is not Trump. It's not the regime. It's not Democrats that we're trying to get in line, but for whatever reason won't. They're opponents from time to time. Our enemy is cynicism and nihilism and fatalism, a sense that is too much, that they're too powerful, that we're too small, that there's no sense in fighting back. That is the real enemy. That's the real enemy. And because the regime does bad stuff on a daily basis, some of which we cannot stop, it feeds that enemy. So we've got to figure out a way to bust through and make people feel like, nah, this guy's an unpopular, lame duck president operating from a place of weakness and lashing out. And we've got the power. And a good way to do that, Jim? With the largest peaceful protest in modern American history. And that's what we have planned on Saturday.
Love it. I mean, that is exactly what people need to hear right now. And I say it all the time. For all the talk of Trump derangement syndrome, the thing that worries me, that I get concerned about, is what I call Trump depression syndrome.
Yeah.
That people get so down in the dumps. I talk about this all the time when I talk to groups. And so I'll bring it up tonight. I'm doing an event here in Charlottesville. But it's that people just give up. They say, it's over. We're done. You can't think that way.
You can't think that way. And if you listen to the experts in authoritarianism, what they would say is it is a mistake to feel like, well, we haven't stopped them and therefore we failed. That successful movements around the world that have pushed back against authoritarians, the way they judge whether they're having success is, one, are you bigger than you were before? Two, are you more unified than you were before? Three, are your tactics proliferating? Are you doing different stuff? And four, is the regime less popular than it was before? I can tell you, we're headed into the largest peaceful protest in modern American history. We had 6 million people out last time. We have 2,600 events all around the world with more RSVPs than last time. We are more unified than we were before. 6 months ago, the Democrats had surrendered to Republicans on a funding bill. Right now, they're standing strong. Our tactics are proliferating. Weeks ago, the regime tried to bully yet another up and push back. And we're doing this at a time when the regime has never been less popular. So we're bigger, we're more unified, we're doing more stuff, and the regime is weakening. I know it doesn't feel like sunshine and roses and flowers and rainbows every day, but I'll tell you, the experts of authoritarianism, the Timothy Snyders and the Heather Cox Richardsons and the Maria Steffens and the Erica Chenoweths, they see what we're doing. They're saying, yeah, more of that. That's what works.
That's so true. And I was just talking with Ruth Ben-Ghiad yesterday on my show, and she's an expert in authoritarianism, wrote that great book on it, and on called Strong Men. And she said, first of all, that Trump is moving much faster than Vladimir Putin did when he came into power, and the way he is trying to solidify things and establish sort of an autocratic regime. But she did also say that what's taking place with No Kings and other grassroots organizing events, it's having the kind of momentum that she's really not seen in a very long time, and that this is historic, what is taking place. And so people need to understand that you're not only going to go out there on Saturday to get your voice out there and to make your feelings very plain and simple to the people here in Washington, but you're also being part of something that's history in the making. Yeah.
It is historic, and it depends on all of us. Look, I
Yeah.
want people to get out of the mode of consuming media and thinking that's political participation. Look, it's good to be informed, but politics is what we do. It is what we do. And if we want a democracy that reflects us, we got to demand it. If we demand it, we win. Simple as that. There are more of us than there are of the authoritarians. It's not even close.
And Ezra, I've got to ask you a couple of things. First of
Yeah.
all, I'm a little worried. I'm wondering what you're thinking, uh, in terms of what the Trump administration might try to do, what his biggest supporters, people like Greg Abbott, might try to do. There's a story coming out of Dallas, Fox station there, saying that Governor Abbott has ordered the deployment of personnel and tactical assets from the Texas Department of Public Safety and the Texas National Guard to Austin for what he calls a planned Antifa-linked demonstration. I'm a little worried that there's some instigating, some government-sanctioned instigating that we may say take place on Saturday. What's the message? Because it seems to me that folks are going to have to exercise great restraint, and that there may be some efforts to try to draw a spark from the crowd.
That's right. They will try to do that. That's clearly what they're trying to do. We've seen Republican leaders like Ted Cruz or Mike Johnson or members of the regime try to smear what we're doing here. And come on, it is so ridiculous. Anybody who's been to a hands-off protest or the No Kings protest or the May Day protest this year, what you have felt there is joy, is this sense of people power. It's folks with their dogs and their kids and funny signs and chanting and laughing and dancing. It's a scene, Jim. It's a place to be. And they're terrified of that, as any regime that is clinging to power while implementing unpopular policies would be terrified. They don't want mass groups of people peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights. I get it. They should be worried. That is a threat to their plan to consolidate power. And that's why we're going to do it. The single worst thing we could do is, in response to threats against us for exercising our First Amendment rights, we say, okay, we're not going to exercise them. If we do that, we lose them. That is a really bad move. So instead, what we have to do, we can't let them take our power. We can't let them take our joy. And we've got to prepare for what they try to instigate, which means we have held, gosh, I don't know how many safety and de-escalation trainings over the past several weeks. If folks are worried and want to get grounded, go to nokings.org, look at the trainings. They're there. We have trained tens of thousands of volunteers on safety and de-escalation, thousands of marshals, safety marshals, and every single one of the 2,600 events out there on the map have a safety lead and a safety plan. If they don't, they're off the map. It's a baseline requirement. I can't guarantee you that the regime is not going to pull anything. I think they might. And also, it is our job in this moment to stand up peacefully but forcefully and say, look, we don't do kings in America, and we have constitutional rights, and we're going to exercise them.
Yeah, I mean, Ezra, when I saw Donald Trump putting it on Truth Social over the weekend, I think it was, when he said, Joe Biden, the Biden FBI, they had plants in the crowd on January 6th and so on. Now, a lot of us wrote that off as, including myself, as another sign that he's way over the hill, he's way past his prime, and he's losing it. But there's also a thing with Trump that's called projection.
Yes.
And I wonder if you saw that and thought, I wonder what, the sick gears are turning in his head, and he's thinking, well, maybe we should plant some people in the crowd. Maybe we should try to do some stuff to stir things up. I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but I thought about it.
Would not be surprised in the least. I think you're right. Every accusation is an admission from these folks. We see that again and again and again. But for us, then the question is, what do we do? What do we do?
Yeah.
And the answer is, we reassert our commitment to nonviolence and peaceful protest. We train ourselves to be prepared, and we show up in numbers that they just are not prepared for. I think there's quite a bit of malice coming from this regime, but there's also quite a bit of incompetence. They're just not prepared for what we're bringing, and we got to bring it. It's up to us to do it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Trump is his own worst enemy, I like to say. And part of the reason why is the sheer incompetence and the incompetent people that he has around him. The other thing that is the hallmark of kings and dictators and autocrats is going after their political enemies. There's some reports coming out that now John Bolton has been indicted. I mean, this, one is something, I suppose. Two is, you say, okay, meaning Comey and Letitia James. Now we have three. Now we have a pattern. I'm sorry. It's just out in the open now. And your thoughts on this? I mean, this, I think, highlights the need for a grassroots movement to rise up in this country and to let the powers that be know in Washington, we are not becoming a dictatorship. We're not becoming an autocracy where this is normalized.
That's
And
right.
I think people are going to be speaking out on this too on Saturday.
That's right. Look,
Yeah.
it's very troubling because it's really important for democracy for you to be able to disagree with the regime. It's important for there to be peaceful opposition that can remain peaceful opposition without being targeted by the regime. And it's clear that this president is using the tools of the executive branch to go after his political enemies, whether that's the DOJ or the IRS or other institutions. And that's not dangerous just for the folks being targeted. It's dangerous for our democratic system. We cannot have a democracy if that's how it works. So I think one of the things we got to do is show up. The other thing we need to do is demand from our leaders that they not just ask us to vote, but that they promise that what comes next is an era of reform and accountability. We are going to take the House of Representatives, Jim. We're going to take it. We might take the Senate as well next year. And what I want to see in January of 2027 are the subpoenas flying. I want to see the hearings. I want to see the testimony, not just from the top dogs, but from anybody who said, well, I was just following orders. That's why I used the IRS to go after Trump's political enemies. That's why I was part of this DOJ investigation that was totally political and baseless. That's on you. You have responsibility in this moment. I'm telling you now, you will face consequences if you engage in illegal and unconstitutional behavior. And I want to hear that from representatives and senators as well, who are going to actually have the power to implement that era of accountability.
Yeah, there has to be accountability on the horizon. And I wonder, Ezra, what you think about Democratic leadership. Are they the right people to, they're the right players on the field to bring about that era of accountability if and when Democrats take the House, possibly the Senate next year?
Well, I think we're going to learn a lot right now and in the coming days and weeks. So 6 months ago, Chuck Schumer led a surrender of the Senate Democrats on the Republican bill. Today, they're dug in. They had the 10th vote on that Republican budget bill or funding bill today. And we've only lost the same three that we lost the first one. So Nevada, Cortez Masto, Maine, King, Angus King, and Pennsylvania, John Fetterman. But we haven't lost more. They are holding strong. I hope they're fighting back. I would say we have some green shoots on that front. We have some evidence that they're starting to actually act like a unified opposition party. And if they do, great, I cheer them on. I would vastly prefer to be cheerleading a unified opposition party. But we're also headed into primary season. We're going to have a lot of healthy debates about the direction of this party. And so far over the last 11 months, I've seen this battle playing out between the rollover and play dead Democrats and the fight back faction. And I believe the fight back faction is ascendant now. We see that in the strategies they're currently implementing, but it's not dominant. It's not the only faction in the party. And I think we need a dominant fight back faction. That's what needs to be leading the party. And I'm down with whoever wants to lead that. I don't have a favorite. If somebody wants to rise to the occasion, I'm behind them, but I'm not going to accept failed leadership. And I don't think rank and file Dems and the voters in the primaries coming up are going to accept it either.
Yeah. And I wonder if just going after the Obamacare premiums is the right strategy. I mean, I get that it maybe polls well and they think, okay, we've got them over a barrel on this one and so on. But when I'm seeing these ICE raids, when I'm seeing, people like John Bolton getting indicted after Comey and Letitia James, I'm seeing some warning signs and some alarm bells going off that I wish I would hear Democrats talk about more than they are right now. And maybe they do, maybe I just don't, maybe I'm not seeing it.
Right.
I think I'm pretty online, as the kids say, but
You are right. There are some leaders. I think of a Chris Murphy. I think of a Maxwell Frost. I think of a Jamie Raskin, Jasmine Crockett. There are leaders within the Democratic Party who are saying what you're saying. But you're also right that the Democratic Party is settled on what polls the best, which is the ACA tax credit extension. And that, look, I'm for that. 57% of MAGAs are for that. I'm glad that they're fighting for it. But if I could write whatever the demands would be, I would say don't invade and occupy American cities without the written consent of the governor and the mayor. Don't allow a secret police force to terrorize American communities while masked. Don't let the federal government run roughshod over the American public and the Congress by closing agencies that have been authorized by the legislative branch. There is a fighting posture that we're edging up to, Jim, and this is why I say green shoots, but we're not quite there. There's one provision in this set of Democratic demands that speaks to that, and that's the anti-rescission and impoundment provision that Democrats are demanding. This is what's allowing Donald Trump and Russell Vought to treat the federal budget like their own personal piggy bank. And there are Democratic demands to say, a deal's a deal. Don't just go back and change everything that we've talked about. In order for us to sign on to this, we want these provisions. I think that's a step in the right direction. And I want to give credit where credit's due. That is more than just healthcare polling well. That is pushing back against the regime. Is it enough? No. Does Donald Trump want to give it up? Also, no. So let's encourage that behavior, and then let's demand more of it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And you're so right on that. But I just would like to hear a little more poetry. Maybe I've watched too many old movies about politics, and I just, I would like us to aspire to be a country that's a bit more romantic about our democracy and what's at stake right now, and just show a little bit more of a fighting spirit than what we've seen so far. And I think you're absolutely right. And I talked to Mark Warner, the senator from Virginia yesterday, and he emphasized that yes, they've gotten the message. That perhaps they were not on message at the beginning of the administration. And I was like, yeah, no kidding. And they seem to get it now. I just wonder if the urgency is there, if it's ever going to be there with the players on the with who we're seeing in front of the mics.
Well, here's what I think. Talk is cheap, Jim. Mark Warner is up for re-election. He's facing a primary. We'll see if he gets a challenger. I don't know. But it's all well and good to have people who talk the talk. I like inspiring speeches as much as the next guy. I think that's a piece of it, but it's not the only thing. We need to see them use their leverage. And so I think we ought to be hard on our leaders in this moment and rally behind them if they are indeed using their leverage as they are now. But if they're not, we got to recognize we cannot afford to have a loser Democratic Party. We just can't. There's a would-be authoritarian in the White House. They are running over 350 million Americans with these.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I think it's spot on. And I think they're starting to get the message, and you're part of the reason why they're getting the message, Ezra. Best of luck to you on Saturday. Hope to see you out there. I don't know where you'll be. I see a Texas license plate behind you. Maybe that means you're on the road. I don't know where you are, but a secure, undisclosed location.
I'm from rural Texas. I'll be out in D.C. But my recommendation to people around the country is go to one near you. You do not have to drive hours. Hopefully 90% of Americans, 90% of the 340 million Americans in this country live within an hour drive of their No Kings protest that's nearest to them. Go there. Go to the nearest one. Be part of the community that's pushing back.
All right, Ezra, great to see you, man. Best of luck on Saturday. Thanks so much. Stay safe.
Appreciate you.
All right. And as Ezra was saying, everybody's going to be out there. You don't want to miss out. Why would you be planting your begonias, or it's probably not the time you're going to plant begonias. You're probably pulling your tomatoes out of the garden right now. It's middle of October, but you get my point. You don't want to miss out on what is going to be taking place on Saturday. It's going to be historic. And as I was mentioning earlier, a shameless plug here, a soulful plug, you might say. Joy Reid, Don Lemon, and myself, we're going to be hosting our second edition of No Kings coverage. We did it back in June. It was wildly successful. It just destroyed everything in its wake, in its path. And I'm being a little hyperbolic there, but No Kings Day 2.0, Joy, Don, and Jim are back. And there's Trump wearing the Burger King crown there. That's the only crown he's ever going to be allowed to wear, is one from Burger King or Chuck E. Cheese's. If you get like 1,000 tickets, I think that's the crown you get at Chuck E. Cheese's. That's why we have it on Donald Trump's head right there. But stay tuned for that coverage. All right, I'm going to cut things a little short today because I got to get ready for this thing coming up in a couple of hours. But really appreciate everybody tuning in today. My thanks to Larry Sabato. Of course, my thanks to Ezra and the folks over at Indivisible. Don't forget, No Kings Day 2 coming up on Saturday. I'll be out there reporting live on all of this and bringing it to you coming up this weekend, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, still reporting. I'm in Charlottesville, so I can't say from Washington, but still reporting. I'm Jim Acosta. I'll see you soon.